That happen in your operating system. If you unplug while you are doing something, editing or something, watching the movie, and the power, you lose the power out of battery. When you start your system again, it takes longer time than usual, right? Why? The instance recovery happen. Operating system also keep the log data, activity, and the temporary file. So synchronize, match whether this is valid or not, check everything. And if not, the latest one or valid one will be applied. So it takes some time because they need to read the log, temporary file, and so same thing. This one will be happen. The instance recovery. This is called the redo. There's another operation for the recovery, that is the undo. Undo means it's opposite, but the concept is it's slightly different. For example, here update 0 to 1. So old image, the new image. This is before coming. Okay, before coming. However, sometimes this one is supposed to be originally 0, but it's before coming. If we do not have enough space in the memory, this one will be changed. What? Before coming. Then power down and start it again. During the instance recovery check, this one is supposed to be 0, but it's 1. Right? We need to recover. How? There's no log data because it's not committed, but we have rollback segment. Rollback segment 0, before, and 1. Then, but we cannot find any update, which means we need to go back to the before image. Using this one will be changed before. Undo. We go back to the original. It's an undo operation. So it's not only for the instance recovery. In the real database, backup and recovery. Okay? Backup and recovery. So what is a backup and recovery? So when I'm not sure whether I mentioned the major in my undergraduate college. So my major was mathematics education. So I'd like to be a high school teacher, but due to the difficulty of the exam to be public high school the teacher, it's like the government officer. So very good benefit. So and it is true. It's a gender. There is still gender gap in my hometown. The female and male. So female, they usually try the government officer because there is no discrimination and the same benefit, same salary, and especially teacher job. Like if you see the teachers in United States, 90% female. So similar thing, more serious in the hometown. So it was really tough to pass that exam because most of the student teachers, they studied 3-4 years only for that exam. So I gave up. Then I tried to get a job, any kind of job, but I was exposed to the computer a little bit. So I tried such an IT department. Finally, the supervisor hired me. Then my supervisor actually would like to train me as a database administrator. Then the first time he mentioned about the two things. There are two important things for the database administrator. Actually, not only database, but any kind of administrator job, network administrator, operating system administrator, architecture administrator job. Two most important things. One is the importance level is 49% is the first one. 51 is more important. The first one is backup. Even not recovery. Because in case something happens, if you have the backup, somebody you can hire. You can call the Oracle or you can call the Microsoft to recover using your backup. But they don't do the backup for you. Okay? So backup, always the backup the system. So backup is not that simple. So think about the computer. How often do you back up your stuff? How do you back up? Weekly? Wow, you are really good. So why don't you mention your? So even for me, I never back up the personal device. So even photo. Think about everybody believes that if you especially have a child, so you'd like to take the photo a lot, but you say that this is the most important thing for my life, whatever, but you never back up. Then sometimes you lose. Do not believe the digital media on the storage. It can be easily damaged. So like due to the environment, like the humidity and the dust, so if something is slightly scratched, then you may lose the data, or you need to pay a lot to restore. So anyway, so first important job, 49% of the administrator job should be backup. Then the backup should be not simple. Think about you are managing the system 24/7 and a year. So non-stop the servicing. How do you backup? That's also the issue. There are two types of backup. One is cold backup, and another one is hot backup. What does that mean? Cold backup and hot backup. If you back up during the winter, it's a cold backup. If you back up the summer, hot backup. Why don't you touch your computer? If you shut down, it will be cold. But while it is running, it's hot. So offline backup is the cold backup. Cold backup is simple. You can just copy everything. If you back up like after you shut down, every application just copy your file. That is a cold backup. In case of a database, what do you need? All the file on your system. Just copy everything. Let's start it again. That's a cold backup. How to restore? Just copy all the backup data. Problem? Day 0, day 1, 2, 3. So you back up the day 0. And something happened day 1. So you can restore up to day 0. What about this? You lose the data. Okay? So cold backup is simple, but you lose the data after the backup. So that is a cold backup. What is a hot backup? It's while online. Then how can we back up during the online? When you back up the data, the most important part is the data file storage plus rollback segment. Another important one is log data. Okay, then for the hot backup, your system is running. So if you back up the one file, then any change of this one will be logged along. All the logged during the backup. Then while you are applying the restore, this backup file plus log file applied, like the redo and undo. Not only the redo, sometimes you may need the undo also. So redo and undo apply during the restore and other file. So that is the hot backup. So hot backup is more complicated. Okay? So that is the reason you should have the scenario. Like for example, in the government, each government has the kind of the manual for the disaster, different types of disaster. In case of the flooding, the city of Bridgeport has a manual how to evacuate, when evacuate, how to evacuate, and so on. So following the manual. So for the system management administrator, you should have such a scenario. One more important thing, you need to practice. A lot of the company, they keep backup, but never restore. The disaster will not be happen frequently. So then, even though you back up, you don't know where is the backup file, how to restore. So the practice is another important thing. So that is the backup and recovery. Don't forget that you need to back up this file. You cannot back up the memory part. Okay? Don't need. the only this all the file backup, especially for the hard backup. So you need to back up the specific file, and during that time you can the log. And finally, you need to keep the log. If you lose the log data, no way to recover. So each DBMS provides a specific command, backup and recover. So that's the reason I cannot show, but you can check. So that is a backup and recovery. Then another thing I didn't mention, there are two important things for the administrator. First one, backup and recovery, especially backup. And second, is the most important part, job. What do you think? What is the most important job of the administrator? Disaster recovery, that's a good suggestion, but disaster recovery, including backup and recovery. So this is a per server side. What about your entire building is collapsed, like the bombing or the something, like the 9/11 or like the Sandy. So your entire system is dead to quickly, instantly restore. It takes a time. You need to build the building and something set up, and it will take a couple of months or sometimes year. So during that time, you lose your customer. So that is called the mean time to recovery. Mean time to recovery. MTTR should be shortened or no downtime. To do that, disaster recovery support exactly same copy of the site, backup site. They synchronize. So if something happened, A site, this one will be run. Standby site. This is called the disaster recovery. Okay? Disaster recovery usually the bigger impact of your computer system. That's also the important thing. So to reduce the downtime or the mean time to recovery. Okay? Lesson. It is not possible zero mean time to recovery. Why? Even the online standby, it will take it's called the heartbeat. So you need to check the heartbeat of the entire system. If not respond, you can own the disk, but it may take a time to synchronize. However, that's a part of the backup. The most important part is the documentation. So you are employed. So like me, so I left my job after 6 years. Then even though I did everything, it looks like when I left my job, I believed so nobody can take over my job. So they will call me again, but never call me. So it's kind of sustainability. So the best way to keep the sustainability is the documentation. No matter who replaced your position, my position, whatever, with the document, you can continue to work. So documentation is very, very important, but easily ignored. So sometimes the people blame the person. This guy didn't do anything, just document the report very nicely. That's one of the capability of the person. Okay? Or sometimes it's more important for the management part. You don't have to blame. So I'm very good at the developing and the coding, but that's just a part of it. You need to document. Who knows, you leave tomorrow. Then somebody needs to take over. So entire the project management, PM perspective, so you need to keep the document. So one time, after I quit the first job, before I moved to the United States, I was in the IBM for 1.5 years. So the main reason they provide the flexible work time, so I can use the time. So unlike the previous job, and then one of the really tedious job at the IBM is I need to report all my work during the working time by 2 hours. So if I work the 8 hours, so there's the report. Every 2 hours, I need to type what I did and document and everything. It's really tedious job, but that is the common from the project the management point of view. So this is the overall thing of the what happened in terms of backup and recovery. I explained the backup and recovery and the transaction management and so on. So what is the time? It's the 12. We still have time. Okay. So this redo and undo and all of this will be based on what? Transaction. So transaction, as we discussed last time, is the set of the atomic unit, logical atomic unit. Okay. So what is the unit of redo and undo? It's a transaction. Based on the transaction, it will be applied or it can be redo. Okay. So transaction has the starting with the begin transaction, but nowadays we don't use explicitly the begin transaction automatically. So start the begin transaction and end with either the commit or the rollback. So from time to time you need to do the partial commit, that is called the checkpoint. So please use the checkpoint for the long running, updating or changing job. So undo and redo. So undo is it doesn't. For the redo, it's supposed to be applied after commit, but it's not applied to your permanent, the persistent storage. Using the log, we can redo to apply. On the other hand, the undo is it's not supposed to be applied, but it's applied because of the limitation of our memory. So checking the before and after image with the log. If not in the log, it's not committed, we can go back. That is the undo operation. So all the backup and recovery job is a combination of the redo and undo operation. Any kind of that. To do that, we need to keep the log definitely in the persistent disk. But I do not, the textbook does not mention about the rollback segment. They may be various, different from the depending on the DBMS, but it keeps the before and after image in the secondary storage. Okay, persistent. So this is called the first writing a log or write ahead log. Sometimes it's called the write ahead log. Means you need to write the log just before the commit. Ahead log. Ahead you need to write a log of this one when you commit. Then it will be finalized. So then this transaction has such a characteristic. Quickly I'm going to review again. So atomicity means it's logical atomic unit. Once it starts, no matter how many the operation are there, apply all together or revoked all together. That is atomicity. And consistency, the consistency means from one state to another state, if committed, transaction is done, then it's the perfect state. State means the schema and the data. Okay, it should be reliable. So then isolation, as I mentioned here, you need to protect your changes data, but different protection level, which is called isolation. Okay, so for example, you can allow the only read for the update data, or you can allow the read for the only committed data. Okay, so different level of the isolation. If your isolation level is too low, it will be problem in terms of consistency. On the other hand, if your isolation level is high, then your performance, like the transaction cannot access the data because it's locked. So you need to consider the different level of the isolation. Mostly administrator decide. Then, since we have a number of the transaction to keep such a characteristic, okay, we need to schedule the scheduling based on what? It's a serialization. So we try to find the sequence of the transaction that will not violate any problem of this one, isolation, especially isolate. Did I mention? Durability means once the transaction is committed, it will be permanently applied. How? Using this one. So using this log and before and after image on the secondary storage, we can keep the durability. Actually, this is a very strong characteristic. Okay, because of this one, we can believe the data. However, to keep the atomicity, consistency, isolation, and durability overhead. So because of this characteristic, when we had very large data or unstructured data, like the non-relational type of the data, like for example, image, video, graph, and document. These kind of, for example, right now many of program languages use a JSON file. What is a JSON file? Actually, Java used for the communication, but nowadays it's a standard for the communication between the process and between the application, between the server. Okay, so keep in mind the importance of the JSON file nowadays. So using the JSON file, so to keep the durability, so it's an overhead. So if you have such a non-relational type of the data, this will not be acceptable. So we lose some of the characteristic, which means relaxed version of that, to support the very large data for non-structured or semi-structured data. So that is the idea of the NoSQL database. So if you are interested in such another type of database, like the NoSQL database, it will be offered 2018, the fall. Right now I'm thinking. Okay. So that is, then the further to keep such a character, we can find the sequence of the transaction. So that is the transaction scheduling, and that is the serializable the transaction. I'm going to skip the details of the transaction scheduling, but idea is that. So you don't have to worry about too much of the scheduling algorithm. Okay. Then this kind of the transaction is supported by the standard, which means it's for most. If you're the DBMS follow the standard, SQL 2 standard is the old standard, but it's a general standard. Then after that we have the SQL 3, SQL 2000, but SQL 2 is the most basic standard. So which means such an isolation level, the transaction concept are the standardized. Any DBMS use the same thing, like for example the no explicit begin transaction. So even though we do not use the implicitly, there is the begin transaction, and the end transaction is a commit or rollback, and the access mode and read only or the read and write. Read only, it's not used a lot, but sometimes you can use the write up at the read only, the media, like the CD-ROM. You can back up, you can create a table with the CD-ROM or DVD-ROM in case you do not update, do not change. Like the history data. History data, mostly you don't change the historical data, right? Transaction history or something history. Then you can keep such a data in such a read-only. You can create a table, either database as a read-only. And the access mode mostly read and write. Then the different isolation level with uncommitted, which means you allow other transaction to read the uncommitted data. Read commit only committed data. And repeatable read and the serializable and so on. The default is a serializable that keep the characteristic of the transaction. Then it doesn't violate any the consistency issue. Okay? If you change such a level of isolation, that may cause something problem that we discussed before. Then that is formalized as the phantom read, the dirty read, the non-repeatable read. It's the same concept as that I showed. If without the consistency, we may cause something the problem which doesn't exist. Or sometimes a phantom. What is a phantom? Phantom of opera. It's like the ghost. It's deleted, but it's still exists. If you do not if you allow such the different level of the lower level of isolation. Okay, so that's the end of the transaction management. Next week, we will finalize the semester with the locking. So it's a concurrency control. The consistency means we try to keep the consistency of the data in the database. Concurrency is different. Concurrency means when we have the multiple transaction, how we can keep the consistency. Okay. So in other words, if we generalize a concurrency problem, that is kind of a synchronization problem. So how do we solve the synchronization issue in the database? That's the concurrency control. Obviously, we need to use the locking, but different types of locking mechanism. We will see the one of the basic locking mechanism, two-phase locking mechanism in the next class. Okay, thank you, and see you. Oh, by the way, the last page is extended. So we extend the due date of the last phase, and GA will announce the demonstration schedule also. Please use the demonstration for the final project. Okay, thank you, and see you next week.